Boston Celtics player rankings, where Joe Mazzulla ranks amongst coaches, and I'm making cameos everywhere, including right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Thanks to Blockbuster brand, it's holiday season. Drop Drew in the mix, and 3 from KP. No, we not on the Knicks. Flushing competition like Al on Giannis. Juice and Big Juice, still Bean Town's finest. Banner 18 going up in the rafters. Watch the C's game in Locked On after. Karalis on the breakdown, clutch like a tip from D. White on the breakdown. John on the mic, documenting domination. Matter pen a back bay, it's all C's nation. Rainier J's how we started, raising business, how we finish. Locked On Celtics pod, home of the winners. Peace.
Hey there. Welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day, and I got you covered every Monday through Friday, plus bonus podcasts whenever they play basketball. So sometimes it'll be 6 days, sometimes it'll be 7 days, which means a whole lot of podcasts in a row, and every single one of them is free. So make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcast. Watch the show on YouTube. You can subscribe there too. You can get into the comment section there and have some fun with a lot of fellow Celtics fans. It's a great place. Even if you are listening on the audio feed, you can go to the YouTube page later when you get to work or when you get home and hop into the comment section and enjoy yourself there. I'm John Karalis. I've been covering the Celtics for like 20 years or so. That's a long time. I'm doing it right now as a beat writer for Boston Sports Journal. I've written a couple of Celtics books. Built Different is the latest one, celebrating Banner 18, signed, personalized copies delivered to you in the United States for $30. So make sure you are ordering one through johnkaralis.com. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet. You get started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Mostly mailbag questions today, but I'm going to start with the player rankings because ESPN has righted a wrong. Everybody last year was like, why? You're telling me Derek White is not amongst the top 100 players? The top 100 players? They were like, no. This year, number 39. So from bottom to top, Al Horford, number 96. Kristaps Porzingis, number 46. Derek White, number 39. Drew Holiday, number 36. Jaylen Brown, 14. Jayson Tatum, number 5. Mostly, I think they're fine. You probably can get away with, I think every single one of these, except like as you get closer to the top, there's like a 4 or 5 player variation. So you get like Al Horford's 96. Could he be 94, 92? Could he be 100? Could be 101? Sure. You know, Kristaps Porzingis, maybe not quite that much, but a few either way. It's so subjective. It's a committee of however many people. This is not the be all end all thing. I don't care necessarily. I could argue that Jaylen probably should be ranked a little higher. Maybe maybe in the top 10. I've said before, I think Anthony Edwards is great, but I think Jaylen Brown this year, right now I'm putting Jaylen Brown ahead of Anthony Edwards. Maybe by the end of the season that changes, but right now going into the season, I'm putting Jaylen Brown ahead of Anthony Edwards. And Ant was 10. So that, if you want to flip those guys, sure. Maybe Jaylen, if you look at the 14, maybe he's 12, 11, whatever. You want to reorganize things. Tatum, 5 is really good. I'm not going to argue that necessarily. Although Shai Gilgeous-Alexander already, at 4, okay, fine. Luka Doncic is at number 2. So, okay, fine. That's I'll accept Tatum at 5. Again, it's a subjective thing. If you want to put Tatum higher, if you want to put Tatum lower, that's fine. If that's the way you want to go. I know there was a ranking out there that had Tyrese Halliburton up there in the top 6. I think sometimes people get a little too, over exuberant with some of these rankings. And this is the time of year where everybody's putting out a ranking. So somebody's going to be upset about something somewhere. I don't care, but I do think it's pretty cool that the Celtics have 6 players in the top 100. didn't do a big search. I know that the Knicks have 6, but a bunch of them were in the lower portions, below 50. The Celtics have a pretty good average of, well, their starting 5, their entire starting 5 when they're healthy is a top 50. So the Celtics are a really good team. They've put together a really damn good team. And I'm just here for Derek White getting the recognition. 39th, fine. I'm not going to lose my mind over a few spots. I'm not going to be like, he should be 34 and no lower than 34. Damn it. No, I'm not going to lose my mind over that. So pretty cool to see, acknowledging the Celtics' greatness. We'll see how this compares next year. Jaylen did move up a couple of spots. Maybe he can move up a couple of spots after that. All right, let's get into some mailbag questions. We'll flow right into Mike's question. By the way, all of these questions can be submitted at johnkaralis.com/mailbag. johnkaralis.com/mailbag. It's the only way I'm going to get these questions. If you put them on Twitter, if you put them somewhere else, I'm just not going to see them. Or I might see them and not remember to get to them because this is the only way I have them organized. So Mike said, I listened to your comments about the NBA poll results for who's best coach. Erik Spoelstra is certainly one of the top guys, but why is he a no-brainer number 1? It's been 11 years since he won a title. When he had peak LeBron, Wade, etc., his team seemed to overachieve. But that in 2023, he was arguably a Tatum sprained ankle away from the biggest choke in NBA history. Help me understand why Spo is the automatic choice and Joe isn't on the radar. So there's 2 separate things going on here. Joe not being on the radar is, I think, a little silly. I think there has to be some acknowledgement. The guy took a team a week before training camp and they got to game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals after going down 3-0 in the Eastern Conference Finals. Like Mike said, they theoretically, we don't know what would have happened if Tatum's ankle was fine, but probably would have been a closer game. So they were right there. They were right there. To do that year is incredible. To come back your second year and win a championship, incredible. He definitely deserves more recognition for that. But why he didn't get the recognition is part of why Spo did. He hasn't been around long enough. There's certainly an argument that will be made by people, not me, because I am around Joe Mazzulla every day of the season practically. And I've gotten to know him pretty well as far as how he interacts with us and how he interacts with the players and just some side conversations and stuff. I have a pretty good grasp on Joe, I think. And so I know how good a coach he is. I've been saying since the beginning of last season how good of a coach he is. Even when people were saying, John, you're crazy, I've been saying it. But from afar, the argument can be made. Well, look, we just did the rankings, the player rankings. You've got 6 players in the top 100. You've got 5 in the top 50, top 46, and you got 2 top 15 players, right? 2 all NBA players. You're supposed to be good. Meanwhile, Spo had LeBron and all of that, but he had to get those guys together. He had to manage those guys. I think there is the understanding around the league that Mickey Arison, the owner, has not always been the most free spending owner, that they have had to pick guys off the scrap heap in the second round, and they're consistently a good team. So Spo gets the credit for, it doesn't matter how bad you think the Heat are, they generally, over his time, have exceeded expectations. And he's clearly not afraid to throw a bunch of junk defenses out there. I say junk, but if they work, they work. He's not afraid to mix it up with a player. He's not afraid to he's not afraid of anything on the basketball court. So I think his reputation is, even though they haven't won a title in a little bit, these teams have almost always been better than they should have been. And that's always how coaches get judged. How do we view this team? And then, are they better or worse than our expectations? Is that fair? Is that not? The Celtics were expected to be good, so Joe doesn't get as much love for what he's done, but he's done a lot. He's done an incredible job. He should be on the radar. Spo has gotten some real stinker teams, and those teams have, the fact that they've made playoffs, of the fact that they made that run in 2023, he's obviously, I think, high on that list or at the top of the list. If you want to say he's not at the top, but he's second or third, same thing I said with the player rankings. It doesn't really matter, because I think he's just a good coach. He's just a really good coach, and he's earned it. He's been around for a long time. He's earned that. Give Joe a few more years. He will get the love too. It's just a little frustrating that he's not getting it now. We're going to come back with another Joe Mazzulla question, and then a question about the ownership and taxes. That's all coming up in just a second. Today's show is brought to you by Hims. This is going to help a lot of guys who have some personal issues that are maybe a little sensitive. Maybe you don't want to go to a doctor's office. Maybe you do not want to broadcast it to a loved one that you need a little boost in the bedroom. You can stop worrying about your performance and get Hims. You can feel confident knowing that you can get hard and stay hard whenever you are in the mood. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. Hims provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints and Viagra and Cialis and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. The process is 100% online. No need for uncomfortable doctor's visits. Just answer a series of questions on their site, and a medical provider will determine the right treatment option if prescribed. Your medication ships directly to you in discreet packaging for free. No insurance is necessary. Just one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. With the hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, Hims can help you find the ED option that works for you. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable compound products, which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. Thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Make sure you're making Locked On NBA your second listen every day. Jake Madison and I, we're moving. We're going to start doing Fridays pretty soon. So we have been doing the Wednesday show. We're going to move to Fridays, but it doesn't matter. You should be listening every day. So make sure you're catching me and all of my friends on the Locked On NBA podcast after all the games at night, getting you all caught up on the league as a whole. It's a lot of fun. Make this your first listen every day. Make Locked On NBA your second listen every day. Make johnkaralis.com/mailbag a stop when you want to submit a question, like Chris, who said a couple of quick comments that I didn't hear mentioned. Joe Mazzulla doesn't get any recognition for in-game adjustments because the C's are usually running away with it by halftime. Why would he change what's working? It's a great question. It's a great comment. The Celtics did win a lot of games by a lot of points, and you don't make a ton of in-game adjustments when you're up. And I think this goes to Mike's point, where there's a lot of talk about adjustments and all of that stuff, and who's getting through, like which teams are winning these close games. Well, the Celtics have had a reputation of not winning these close games, right? Like even last season, they lost a tough one. to like Denver. They lost the Denver game. They lost games to teams without their stars. They have had difficulty in those situations in the past. Now, they haven't needed those situations a lot in the past, so he doesn't get a ton of credit for the in-game adjustments. I get it, but in-game adjustments are happening all the time. And the problem with judging in-game adjustments is we only see the obvious. It's like The Good Place. I don't know if everybody's seen The Good Place, but when Michael is doing the roast of everybody and they say, hey, we got all 8 clues. And he said, well, I left like 500 clues, but your brains couldn't pick up on all of those. It's that type of thing. We only see the obvious, right? We see, did he call a timeout or not? Most of these adjustments are happening as the game's going on. So it's nuanced and it's never going to show up in these rankings. But when the Celtics win by 50, it's not that Joe is just saying, okay, guys, go play basketball. It's they're going out and they're playing and he's making certain substitutions. And yes, certain things are working and he's making the calls. They have a game plan and maybe he's doing the in-game adjustment to keep going at something that's working. Maybe they were going to change something and then no, we're going to keep going at this. This is part of in-game adjustments. Changing your substitution pattern. Maybe letting Jaylen play the whole first quarter instead of Jayson playing the whole first quarter or vice versa. There are times where you just roll with something that works or you pull the plug on something early that's not working. And because it was a first quarter, people go, in-game adjustment. In-game adjustments are like, hey, he went to zone. And that's why Erik Spoelstra gets a ton of in-game adjustment stuff. Wow, he threw that zone at them. We recognize that those guys aren't just chasing a man around. They're playing a spot. So we recognize zone. That's a great in-game adjustment. You can probably, and maybe this will be a focus of mine this season. I'll see if I can remember to do this. In-game adjustments in the first quarter that work. Because it's just like my concept of clutch shots don't need to happen in the fourth quarter. When you hit a three-pointer that stops a 14-0 run and your team goes on an 8-0 run to cut it to 6 and now it's a back and forth game, that's a clutch shot in the first quarter. That's a big shot. Right? So that's all in the same vein. Let's get to Paolo. He says, hi, John. Can we talk a little bit about Wyc Grousbeck's latest interview when he said, quote, we have never had a capital call in the history of the Celtics. The owners just put in the money 20 years ago. It's been self-sustaining ever since, and it will be self-sustaining going forward with no demands for additional capital. Says this means that they don't really pay taxes, quote unquote. The business is self-sustaining. And goes on. It's a long question, but basically the question is many owners are cashing in on a business to cover for something else. And then they don't want to go deep in the tax. The Celtics have done a good job of putting money aside, and they don't pay the tax necessarily. That money has been paid there. So it's an interesting point that's being made here that Mickey Arison, for example, going back to the Heat example, he owns Carnival Cruises. Carnival Cruises has had a lot of problems, and he pulls in his money. He takes the money. It's like, okay, here's my money, and I'm going to use it. Oh, my other business needs some cash. Whoop, 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 whoop. Now I don't have money to pay the tax here, so we're not paying the tax in Miami for the Miami Heat because I spent that money on Carnival Cruise Lines. Wyc Grousbeck said, we basically put the money in the bank. So when the taxes come due, we just take money out and there it goes. So that's great. I will say that they still haven't exactly been like free spending. There have been times where they've made tax moves where it's like, was that the right move to make? But here we are with basically $250 million tax bill coming up next season. When he says there are no capital calls in the history of the Celtics and no demands for additional capital, that's basically putting it all on the line where, hey, maybe next year they don't have to. Maybe they can just pay 1 year of, hey guys, everybody, we're in agreement. $250 million is coming out of this account and we're going to pay this tax bill or whatever. Maybe there's enough money there for one crazy year. I don't know how that's going to work. They're obviously selling the team. I don't know how they're going to move forward. If it goes the way I think it's going to go, which is Steve Pagliuca and a group of current Celtics owners just kind of restructuring the ownership and purchasing a majority stake from the Grossbecks, then yeah, they could probably operate with that same amount of money and keep moving forward. And everybody involved already knows what money, the financial situation. So they can all say, yes, we're going to do one more season of this. And if the Celtics win a championship, they say, we do one more season. We're going to try for a three-peat. That can become very lucrative moving forward. So I think that there's something to Wyc's latest interview where he basically says, we've got money in the bank that we use to spend on this stuff. I go back and forth on next season. I really do. I don't know if they're going to break things up after this year or give it one more ride. Wyc makes it seem like they're going to go for one more ride. I think if Pagliuca buys the team, they might do it. But it's interesting. It at least opens up the door for one more run after this one. We'll come back. We'll talk about Jaylen Brown eating hot wings and my cameos all over the place. It's all coming up next. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book. You can get a big return this season on FanDuel just by placing your first $5 bet. It's very simple. $5. You go to FanDuel.com, $5 on whatever it is. You get 200 in bonus bets guaranteed. So if you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you go onto that page where you make your bets. You can see the stats. You can see the play-by-play. It's all on that same page. You cruise through. You say, yep, I feel good about this. Boom. You place your first $5 bet there, and you get 200 in bonus bets just like that. Very simple. Go to FanDuel.com. Make sure you're using the tools that they have in place for you to set your limits, set your budget. Make sure you're having fun, not going overboard. Gamble responsibly at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. A reminder, we are adding Locked On Celtics Postcast. I am not doing that. We have a separate host for that. Locked On Celtics Postcast is coming up after every game, immediately after every game, so you have something at night before you go to bed, and then in the morning, Locked On Celtics will be there. This is an audio thing only, sharing the feed. So we'll share the feed on the audio side only. It will show up YouTube on the Locked On Sports Boston YouTube page. Locked On Celtics YouTube page remains exact same. So look for more content right here on this feed. Spencer, as we continue and wrap up our mailbag, says, did you see the Jaylen Brown's Hot One interview? Great interview. And based on the comments, it seems like a lot of people have a new appreciation for JB because they did not know much about him besides playing basketball. I have for a while thought JB is one of the greatest humans in the league. And I'm glad other people are starting to see he isn't only a dog on the court, but a great person off it too. Great timing for this question because Jaylen and Drew Holiday and Lauren Holiday have given $1 million, 10 grants of $100,000 to small businesses around Boston, minority-owned businesses, giving them an opportunity to just succeed and grow. I grew up in a small business. I couldn't imagine getting an infusion of $100,000 from somebody. Jaylen and Drew and a lot of these guys on the team, but since we're talking about Jaylen, we'll focus on him. He is an incredible person. This locker room is full of incredible people. They are all just top-notch individuals. I do not have a daughter, but if I did, and she said, hey, I'm dating one of the Boston Celtics, I'd be pretty happy, because those guys, I think, are all just good people. There's people talk about the Celtics team. It's kind of boring. They're amazing. They're very good. The basketball is fun, but there's no drama. They're all very they sacrifice for one another. They go out, they win. They win by a lot. There's no drama in the games. There's no drama in the locker room. There's no drama off the court. No one's getting pulled over and, dash cam or body cam video of confrontations. There's not even that. There's nothing. These guys are just all top-notch individuals. And Jaylen especially is out there trying to make the world a better place. He's focusing on schools. He's focusing on small businesses. He's giving people opportunities. And, Jayson did too by giving, single moms grants and stuff like that. Like these guys are trying to give underserved, marginalized communities an opportunity to succeed and build some generational wealth. That's so important. And when I say generational wealth, I'm not talking about passing down millions to your next, the future. I'm just talking about passing something down that if you are if I have something, I'm in a good position, I can pass that down. And either my stepson or my niece and my nephew, they have an opportunity when they are in that spot. I pass that down to them, and then they pass it down to their kids, and it just goes, each chunk moving down the line gets a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. And it's just an opportunity where people don't normally have them in these communities. So it's an incredible focus from Jaylen. I've said it a million times. I'll say it every day. The city of Boston is better for having Jaylen Brown in it. He's done an incredible job. He continues to do an incredible job. And his off the court stuff always needed to be emphasized, but especially now. So good on Jaylen. Finally, Jonas says, I saw your cameo in Starting Five. Are you cashing those checks for your image and likeness? I'm not. Should I ask for some? Side note, will you ever be in 2K? I feel like that has to be one of the all-time media honors, right? I agree. They need a feature in 2K where your creative player is going through everything, and then the Locked On Celtics podcast comes on, and I record, yeah, he looked good last night, but I don't know, blah, blah, blah. Just a bunch of segments where I'm saying these things as part. I am in. Somebody get to Ronnie 2K and let him know I am in. I can record the podcast. I can be there for you. I can be in 2K. Shout out to Starting Five for the little cameo. I can tell you this. On Sunday, the NBA's, I think, 9-part docuseries on the Celtics championship is coming out. It's not just the cameo. I was interviewed, and I got a preview. I've seen 5 episodes so far, and really good. A little bit of insight that I didn't know. But also I did know, but it confirmed some things. You'll see it all when it comes out. But you'll see this ugly mug in there talking about the Celtics in a few episodes. So looking forward to that. I'm just living my best life. I'm having a great old time. I love talking to you on this podcast. I love being part of this Celtics community. I love being able to share some perspective in these things in the NBA or whatever it is. I did the Celtics preview for Athlon Sports. That's big. If you're looking to pick up a magazine and read a physical magazine, the Athlon Sports preview has got to be out at this point. I did the Celtics preview for them. I'm just enjoying it. And of course, I wrote my book, Built Different. It's one of 2 books that I've written. I mean, I'm out here doing all this stuff and just so thankful that I have had an opportunity to do just one of these things. And you know what that is? That's a testament to you, because you have stuck with me through all of this. You're with me every day. If you're a new listener, I love you. Thank you so much for being here and being part of this. My whole goal is to make your enjoyment of the Celtics just a little bit better. I want you to maybe learn a couple of things. I share with you what I see, and you maybe pick up on a couple of nuances. And when you're watching a game, you go, "Oh, John said that. I never noticed that." That's the happiest I'll ever be. Or I had a gentleman, I forgot your name, I'm sorry, with his young daughter saying he listens to the podcast with his daughter. That's so touching. Anytime I've seen couples listen to the podcast, father son, mother daughter, father daughter, whatever it is, if you're bonding over this podcast, it's really touches my heart. And I'm going to wrap the show up before I start to cry, because it really is touching to me. Thank you all so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Get into the comment section. Let me know what you're thinking, and share the podcast. Tell everybody that they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.